This tape is about Russian guilt in the AIDS attack. And before I get to the very infamous and famous section where I describe Frank Zappa and his kin conceptualizing his guitar solos as him rubbing his cunt in your face, his vagina in your face. I want to talk about the Truman Show and what the meaning of the Truman Show is. It's not unusual for people to bypass what they know or make an association of something that's indexed with something like Jim Carrey's movie. My name is Jim Carrey. The Truman Show is about taking a man's privacy away from him without him knowing it. Okay, so why would they call that the Truman Show? There's a number of reasons. For one thing, the hustle of the United States began with an index of puns. Truman was not aware that he had been maneuvered into position as a joke about him being a true man for using the atom bomb. So Harry Truman is like an ape man. So but the issue was that Harry Truman castigated J. Edgar Hoover. When J. Edgar Hoover came to him with lurid stories, you may be aware that Coretta King listened to J. Edgar Hoover's eavesdropping tapes on her husband, did not raise the issue of principle, and it really did damage to their marriage. Hoover approached Truman with these sort of things, and Truman tried to put a stop to it before it happened to Martin Luther King. He told Truman he didn't buy into compromat, which is the Russian term for it, and he did not want to know what was going on after hours. So you get television shows like The Blue Bloods with a man named Reagan. Tom Selleck plays him or something, who more or less extends the benefit of his doubts to the underling, only to discover that they're dressing up in bondage and being whipped by dominatrixes from the Seattle Capitol Hill Chop District. And this is to make you sympathize with the invasion of privacy. You know, like what they did to me was implant a soundtrack from Revolution Number 9 off Broadway spin control cabinets. And Yoko Ono said, tell them that you were out having fun, and you tied her to a bedpost and went to the refrigerator for carrots and probed her. And she was laughing. And Yoko Ono said, tell him this when he's in terrible fright and trauma, so that natural language systems can, what they called, extrude the memory of the soundtrack, because he's good at remembering our lyrics. So when sarcasm hour comes, Howard Stern will put his pepper on his brain and extrude the compromat. Okay, get the idea. The AIDS attack revolves around the military's Germanic hostility for what they call Asians breeding like rabbits. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Curtain rods is supposedly what Oswald said his rifle was. You know, there's Chuck Connors with the rifle down his groin going, you know, he's going. This kind of visual symbolism is built into the worship of Westerns. You know, Brezhnev loved Chuck Connors. Clint Eastwood has a hard-on for the Russians going back to Sergei Eisenstein. And they're murdering me. You know, and the city of Pittsburgh has this fanatical freak show that believes themselves super cowboy Christians. if you do not fight them as a child, you will be tortured body and soul. And it's justified because you must arrive at peace of the spirit through fighting to protect your chastity. And any fall from grace that they set up and mandate, you can't escape it. They kidnap you, torture you, gas you, beat you, is a fall from grace into Satanism that they purify you with by the AIDS virus. And they ran these select committees on concentration camp methods. And they used me as a treasured kid because that's how they got the blacks to go along with it. They would like that airbrushed out. So instead of airbrushing that out, tied her up and porked her with a carrot style. Instead of airbrushing that out, kosher deli mart style. Instead of airbrushing that out like the spirit of vodka. What's that mean, Jaime? I'll repeat it for you. They chose a treasured child from the Ovoir. My father was on the senior faculty. So that the NAACP could be expected to go along with it. A voodoo doll of the white. Tortured me, deafened me, used nerve agent on me, tortured me, and then used some sex for Hank and Peep Show. And they got the Christians to go, yes, he's not near to the heart of Jesus because he's not resisting our attack prostitutes. So pay them and get them to get abortion, and we'll have some compromise that Trumpy Tune can tell MAGA about and get the Ash Green Party out on the streets burning crosses with the help of their newfound friends in the NAACP. That's more or less how it operates. And it revolves around pornographic trafficking. The FBI and Al Gore invented an internet for compromise. They brought in Miley. Miles is the real name of Nosferatu. A dude named Miles who lived on Clyde with like Bonnie and Clyde Street. He worked for Crowhead Regusta. And Neva, Asian pornographic, he worked with Reagan on the faked assassination attempt. I was there in D.C. I know that they worked together on Mount Desert Island on Two Virgins Pussy Ball with the United Nations, and they had a foolproof plan because they used Lenin as a diversion. He was in on it. Houdini. All the evidence, so that's foolproof because no one will ever believe that one. Okay, so they get away with all of it, and Zappa comes out with his guitar and rubs his vagina in your face because they just brag about it and everything else. Everything else they do brags that that's what happened. But they get away with it. He rubs his guitar solo in your face, Leslie Katz, pendulum style. And they made a Venus flytrap out of pornography. And the Dalai Lama contributed T. Simon Farasani, Tammy Simon of Sounds True Studios, an aquiline nosed Israeli girl who looked like John Lennon in Spectral Stardust. And they used Yoko Ono hypnography and mind blender technology to signify the transcendent Krishna of eternal abstinence. How can you be eternal if you engage in sex, right? It's carnal knowledge. And they had this whole switchboard put together to advocate for depopulation. They ignored the tax and spend waste of nuclear bombs. If anything was satanic, it was that program of putting long-range, mid-range weapons in Germany at Russia. If anything was satanic, it was the underground nuclear test. Arnold went out on his bicycle and said, "It's for a piece of the expanding pie, Greta. It's for a piece of the expanding pie." They ignored the tax and spend. They used the symbolism of Nazi Germany in their films to signify the brotherhood with Lenin. Casper, Lazarus, Blysanders, Unruh, the Walrus. These were all these symbols that they put together to signify the brotherhood of. So the swastika was a symbol of good. They actually had this guy from the NAACP saying it was a sacred honorary, the African symbol, and that the Heinz family were sacred, the honorary African ancestors. So the symbol of good is actually the swastika of Nazi Germany now. Okay, so they played this symbolic prank because the swastika is the square root of all vagina in their book. They put DD, which is the Library of Congress classification system of Nazi Germany, for the fall, symbol of the fall. Pope Karl wrote, the initial encounter of the X motive is tainted by the shadow of the adversary, meaning all the adults in Eastminster District and everybody in King Crimson knew that the girl they used and basically hammered me into a coffin with was involved, aware, post-pubescent, and had lost her virginity sometime before, was experienced, and was eager to seduce me into the role of sacrificial icon. Now, Moon Unit Zappa went like this here and not there. She was going berserk. She was in a frenzy because they had this neurological implant that made me cry when I was rejected. So he's the perfect whining sissy ball. And he's the opposite of John Lennon. And all the women were in hysterics. Opposite of John Lennon, opposite of John Lennon, opposite of John Lennon. And they said, well, that's too good to be true. David Bowie likes the people who put this script together. And we're going to pretend we found it. And go and produce a Super Truman Show. Right? Because Yoko Ono wants revenge on Harry Truman for Hiroshima. So they do the Flash in the Pan and the Beirut, and the Supernova for Sex, a band, and they go, and basically film Joe. He shoots his daughter in the back. Hamas comes and shoots Gaza in the back, basically, is what they did, for having litters of children because of the higher idea of the oligarch system of the bourgeoisie that will come and build back later after the ordeal, to use Penis Gabriel's glossary. And basically they allowed for the AIDS attack and decided to move on. We'll turn the page from the AIDS attack, turn the page, turn the page, turn the page, turn the page from the AIDS attack, and we'll give you some TikTok war. And you'll be the... And of course, Moon Unit is taking a hissy fit right now because the Swami Nostra idea of coming out and catheterizing the AIDS victim, it's like Sean Lennon and Brian Eno listening to Jaime Carminel to Carrot tapes galore and using Love the USSR, well, boom, help Martin Andelman blow up Jackson Labs, wowee, wowee, send airplanes into the World Trade Center for Diamond DeGaulis and Cliff Robertson, wow. And it's fulfillment of the dream of the 60s in the Swami Nostra's hooliganism, which was an outgrowth of Amnesty International's idea that there's a antichrist impulse in nonviolence at the red line of Frank Zappa's guitar solo, vagina rubbing in your face. Literally, this is how they think. And they said that therefore, the people who lost World War II were actually the courageous and good. The people who tried to build public schools and drove school buses were secretly patriarchs who by not sympathizing with uh, molestation by Neva pornographic actresses of little boys were um, compromising the United Farm Workers Union, because the Latin girls pick your fruit. And this is what I mean when I say people make sort of an association. You could call it the Cesar Chavez show as well as the Truman Show, because people sort of make associations. They don't try to reason it out. When Kyra Shine eats her father's arm off, it's a hoagie covered with chocolate sauce in Night of the Living Dead. That's not supposed to be literally Kyra Shine eating her father's arm off. But you get the idea. The Neva pornographic molesting woman after the little boys is the Latin girls who are being exploited to pick your fruit in the United Farm Workers Union. You get the idea. That's the most important thing. Right, Jaime? We all get the idea now, Mr. McCartney.